2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Show. I'm Mark. That's Marcus. Marcus. I'm very excited. USA Soccer, 2-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago. Getting ready to play Mexico on Sunday night. Last night got me all the feels. It was feeling like, I don't know, 2010 World Cup Landon Donovan scoring a goal. I got maybe a little more excited than I should be. I mean, I got these socks on today, showing my spirit. There we go. You know, looking good.
Yeah.
What was your first reaction, watching the game last night?
My first reaction was probably the opposite. Well, first and foremost, we are in a results-oriented moment in time where regardless of how the team plays, regardless of the performance, all that matters is stacking these points up, especially because of the disaster that was the beginning of the final round of CONCACAF qualifying. So my immediate reaction was 3 points. Very professional job, well done, guys. The game itself, I was not that impressed in the first half.
Oh yeah,
with the first half, I was fairly frustrated and wasn't quite doom and gloom at halftime. But I thought Bruce Arena, the head coach, was gonna go in and start throwing chairs around and really give them, really tear into them because they weren't playing that well in the first half. Fast forward 10 minutes into the second half, Christian Pulisic, 2 goals, and yeah, we're heading to Russia, and that's really the margins in this sport and at this moment in time where, heaven and hell, and all that matters is a goal here, another goal there.
Yeah, I think the announcers in the game last night were talking about it, how the U.S. seemed to not be playing with all that much energy, kind of a lot of cliches, but they were right. It just wasn't very impressive in the first half.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, but Christian Pulisic really took over the game.
Yeah.
Man of the match for sure. Really no question about that. But what were some other standouts for you? Well, I'll start for me.
Okay.
Darlington Nagbe really shined in this game. He had some really explosive runs, created a lot of chaos, and was involved in both the goals. This was great because I think that kind of people have been hearing a lot about Darlington Nagbe, and I'm not sure people have really seen a lot of Darlington Nagbe and what he can really do. Yeah. And this was kind of a coming out. I mean, he's played well, but really showed kind of his top-notch game. And against Mexico, with that sort of speed, it could be really vital in getting a point or 3 points down in Mexico City.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting performance from Nagbe because he was a guy who had been playing very well with Portland in MLS, and once he got his citizenship, Jurgen Klinsmann brought him in, gave him a shot, and then kind of pushed him aside. Yeah. And I think Nagbe at one point even refused to call up, or whether it was due to injury or something. Something happened in there where...
Just another story from the Klinsmann regime.
Right, right. So Bruce Arena really, he brought him back in and made this guy who was on, not even in the squad in Klinsmann's final days, a starter. And I think this was the first game where Nagbe really put his, stamped his authority on the game. I hadn't really seen that from him before on the national team level, where he became such a key player, not just somebody who keeps the ball, keeps possession nice, keeps play moving. Yeah. So I was really excited about what I saw from him. Yeah. Another player that stood out for me was DeAndre Yedlin.
Sure.
Yedlin, as I was watching the game, I turned to a friend of mine and I said, Yedlin is not playing particularly well. This was maybe after about 60, 70 minutes. The game seemed to be wrapped up, and we were just talking about different players. Yedlin, I didn't think was playing particularly well, but he did very important things: key tackles, key passes. Defensively, you could see the improvement in his game working at Newcastle with Rafa Benitez, who he could teach me how to defend at a professional level if given the chance.
Don't sell yourself short, Marcus.
No. I have no playing ability to speak of. But Rafa Benitez is he's one of the top defensive coaches, defensive managers in the world, and I could see from Copa America last year to where Yedlin's at now. different player. He's got, you know, I think he's more of a complete player, not so much a what do they call, speed merchant up and down the flanks. So that final ball he put into Pulisic, that was great. I didn't expect him, you know, I thought he would try and cross it over the top and find Clint Dempsey or Josie Altidore on their head. But Yedlin, he impressed me in what was, there were a couple times where I thought he might have been caught out in position. He recovered really quickly. So I was reacting to 2015-16 Yedlin. 2017 Yedlin's a different player, and he's a better player.
And it's just to kind of piggyback off that, you said he had specific moments where he really played well. And on the goal, I think I'm remembering this right. On the goal, you know, sorry, we haven't rewatched the game quite yet, but he times his overlapping run perfectly,
right? And
that leads to, you know, just kind of like that perfect lane being available for the assist to be made. And it's kind of those like small details that you really kind of have to just hammer into a player.
Yeah.
And you know, he made it happen.
It's a maturity that's come into his game really in the last, I don't want to say since he moved to England, but you know, I noticed just in the last year even, little more complete, little more professional.
Right, very encouraging.
Yeah.
You know, you could say, I mean, you know, because the seasons all kind of blend together, especially with the national team, but he maybe had somewhat of a sophomore slump, and then he sort of is coming back up and kind of re-reaching that potential that we saw.
When he first went to England, he didn't really play.
Yeah.
He rode the bench for 6 months or so, and then they loaned him to Sunderland, which it's a chaos club, and you know, now he's found stability and a manager who likes him, so good things from him.
Last thing from Trinidad and Tobago, Pulisic's first goal, he slides in, gets in the back of the net. Chaos ensues. But right behind him was Clint Dempsey, who seemingly, I mean, you never know, but probably could have put it away as well had Pulisic not been there. And for me, it was kind of like this in-the-flesh moment of passing the torch. I mean, really, Pulisic might have kind of already taken the torch as the best player and the best scorer on the national team.
At this moment.
At this moment. I mean, I'm more dependent on Pulisic to score than seeing Clint Dempsey put one in the back of the net. And that's saying a lot because Clint Dempsey is 1 goal shy of tying Landon Donovan for all-time U.S. goals. I think both of us thought he was going to get it either versus Venezuela or Trinidad in these last 2 games. And then versus Mexico, I mean,
you know what that means. It's got to come against Mexico.
I mean, it would be very Clint Dempsey to do it against Mexico in probably dramatic fashion.
Certainly.
But, you know, has he already taken the torch, Pulisic, and are both these players better than Donovan ever was?
Pulisic right now, I would say he's the United States' most important attacking player. And that surprises me because when he broke into the national team, I think that was January 2016. My reaction was, what is he doing there? Not based off of how he played, but I thought he was just too young. And I know he was playing at Dortmund at age 17, but U.S. Soccer has a long and proud history of rushing kids into the national team. You know, there are players that came in at age 18, 19, 20, and by the time they're in their prime, they're nowhere near the national team. It's happened over the years, so I was worried that Pulisic might be one of them. He is not. This kid is the real deal, and you know, I was looking at his stats. He's got 7 goals in 15 national team games. Landon Donovan has the record right now for you know, all time. He's got 56 goals. Clint Dempsey's got 55. I did the math. Pulisic will probably have 80 goals by the time he's done. I expect him to smash this record. I mean, just obliterate it. And you know, I'm just thinking he's probably that good. Every time I watch him play for 90 minutes, I don't watch too much Dortmund, but every time I see him play for the national team, he's another one that's getting better and better and better and more important. And among the players that are 18 years old out there in the soccer world, you can probably count on one hand the ones that are playing more minutes, more meaningful games at a bigger club than what Pulisic is doing. You know, the U.S. under 20 World Cup team was just eliminated in the quarterfinal. Pulisic is old enough to play in the next one. All right, he didn't play in that under-20 World Cup because he was excellent in the last one as a, I don't know, probably a 16-year-old.
Wow.
So, yeah, this kid is, when I say, I wouldn't say right now he's better than Donovan or Dempsey ever was, but I expect him to be, yes.
Yeah, it's so exciting with him because Dempsey and Donovan, they were the best scorers when they played for the team, and but Pulisic is so good that he alters defensive game plans of teams that you're playing.
Yeah.
And just opens up the whole field.
Yeah.
And he demands attention. He demands double marking and different ways to stop him that it's going to just open up so much for other players. But we are on a tight schedule, so we got to keep moving.
Okay. Yeah. You talk about Pulisic all day.
So we are officially halfway through the final round of World Cup qualifying.
Right.
5 matches down, 5 to go. Mexico has a pretty good stranglehold on the CONCACAF right now. 4 wins, 1 draw. USA, 2 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses at 7 points. Costa Rica 1 point ahead at 8. Mexico has 13, and Panama with 6 points.
Yeah.
So heading into this game versus Mexico, it's the toughest match on the final round schedule. I think a lot of realistic people are really hoping for a draw. That would be a great result.
Be incredible.
Assuming we lose and Mexico's on 16 points and we're stuck at 7, potentially Panama could jump back ahead of us when they're playing Honduras this next week. What has to happen for the USA? I know it's like, keep winning, but
sure.
Where do those wins have to come from?
I just did a little napkin math earlier. U.S. would have 4 games after the Mexico. I think that's home against Panama, home against Costa Rica, at Trinidad. I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but basically get 4 points from those 2 home games, get 2 points from those 2 road games, and I think that should be enough to get in. That would give the U.S. 13 points. Usually if you're around 13, 14, 15, you sneak in at the back end. I don't see them catching Mexico.
I think
Mexico, for me, has really, I know we'll get into this maybe a little later, but they are the dominant team right now at this moment. But boys, U.S. team is resurgent. They're, with each passing game, it almost seems like that the end of the Klinsmann era is so long ago because this team is better. I was looking at the squad yesterday and I said, wow, this is the full national team squad. This is the best that we have. And you look at a guy like Omar Gonzalez, who's playing in Mexico right now, became the first American to win the Mexican League, the MLS Cup, and the CONCACAF Champions League. He can't even get into the team. He's got 2 guys ahead of him. So the squad's looking really, really strong right now. I know injuries and yellow cards can affect things, but they're this Mexico team. I don't see the U.S. catching them, but
what's encouraging is that after this Mexico game, we've played Mexico twice. And they're out of the way, and we're in theory the second best team in CONCACAF right now.
Sure.
So we should be favored in the rest of these games. Even the road games, we should be favored to at least come away with a point. So there's no reason to really be in panic mode. We're not in panic mode. We're relaxed for the road to Russia, and we just got to go out there and take care of business. But Mexico, talking about this game Sunday night, Mexico on some great form. Just took care of Honduras 3-0. They took down Ireland a week ago in a friendly 3-1. They're looking very good. And they're ready not only for this game, but getting ready for the Confederations Cup 7 days later. So U.S. doesn't have the best history at the Azteca.
No. And you know what? Nobody does.
Nobody does.
It is one of the most intimidating venues in all of the soccer world.
How many people does it fit? 150,000?
Well, they recently renovated it for, I believe, NFL purposes, and the capacity might be down just a shade under 90.
But it's a shame.
I mean, we're talking 7,300 feet above sea level. It's a big, giant bowl.
It captures, it sucks in sound.
Yes.
It like takes it from the clouds and
right. And then the smog. You know, it is the United States' most important and most difficult game outside of the World Cup that they play. Period. And it's Sunday. I'm excited about it. I'm nervous about it. I'm anxious to see what they're going to do, because there's nothing easy there. The referees won't be with you. The fans won't be with you, and they have to go in with us against the world mentality.
And it's weird thinking about these Mexico games when we play in Mexico, and we've had really surprising results against some of the best teams in the world. I mean, we've beaten Italy in Italy. We've beaten Spain in Brazil, and we cannot beat Mexico in Mexico. But we do look good leading up to this game. In Salt Lake City, the friendly, we played at above 4,000 feet. Denver was above 5,000 feet. We jump up a couple more thousand to get to 7,300 feet.
I almost see this as
hopefully that is not the most detrimental factor.
Right. But the entire last couple weeks of camp and the friendly and the Trinidad game, it's been this slow build-up, slow climb up the mountain, and it's both realistic and metaphorically speaking. They're just climbing to their big test, and the idea is you slowly acclimate your body over the span of days and weeks, where by the time you arrive in Mexico City, which is 1.5 miles up above sea level, you are as ready as you could possibly be. It's not like they're flying in the day before the game and from Miami. It's been really methodical build-up. So it's an exercise in sports science. Let's see how good it is.
Exactly. Switching to the Mexico side of things, how important is this game for Mexico? Because they are 5 points up on Costa Rica.
Right.
So a loss and a Costa Rica win, they're still in first place. But in theory, we're the second best competition in this World Cup cycle to Mexico. And if they beat us, they've already beaten us on the road, albeit under Jurgen Klinsmann.
Right.
And if they beat us again at home, I mean, that just really establishes their dominance. And, they're on great form heading into the Confederations Cup. I mean, I'm sure they're looking to just keep it going.
Right.
So, I mean, is this something that they aren't looking forward to the Confederations Cup and thinking about? I mean, they play Portugal in a week.
Right.
So they aren't looking past this game at all, being in the comfortable position that they're in.
For Mexico, beating the United States is always what they want. It's the rivalry. It's the statement. It's not a statement game. Correction, it is a statement game because 4 years ago, Mexico, they were in disarray. And I don't know if you remember, they backed into the World Cup via the playoffs. They had to beat New Zealand under 2
and that was extremely surprising.
Right. So I kind of look at everything that's happened since then with this Mexico team and where they currently are. Should they beat the United States, it's officially, whatever was going on then, it's in the past, it's over, because their coach, Juan Carlos Osorio, he took them, they were throttled in Copa America by Chile. I think they lost 7-1 in the knockout phase of the tournament. And that's really the only, it was a major slip by Mexico, and he came under a lot of pressure for that, as he should. You lose 7-1 against anybody in a competitive game, it's a problem. But other than that, they've been winning all the important games and winning all the other games too. They've been very, very good, and I don't have the exact permutations in front of me, but if Mexico beats the United States, they'll have 16 points with 4 games to spare, and that should be enough to get them into the World Cup. They won't mathematically qualify, but I would say maybe 2 wins.
Getting to 19 points.
That would give them 19 points, should be automatic mathematical qualification. The United States qualified in 2014 with 2 games to spare. And That's the best they've ever done. And you know, I was praising Klinsmann for his masterful methods of guiding the U.S. through the final round of qualification. Mexico might qualify with 3 games to spare, which is it's unheard of.
And just to even reiterate how tough it is to play in Mexico, the U.S. dominating CONCACAF the last World Cup cycle, Mexico backing in. When we played at Mexico, we didn't win.
No.
Yeah, so it's just,
Did
it
we
really
get a
doesn't
draw,
matter.
Maybe a draw out of that one. I don't remember off the top of my head. Did not win though.
No.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned it for a second how Mexico was blown out by Chile, and then the U.S. in that tournament was blown out by Argentina. And I know we didn't really discuss this. I don't want to get too far off track.
Sure.
But where is CONCACAF as far as if you were to rank the different soccer federations around the world? Are they third behind CONMEBOL and UEFA? I guess it's.
No, I would say the strongest teams in CONCACAF could compete at the top of any confederation outside of UEFA and CONMEBOL, where you know, you've got your Brazils, your Argentinas, your Germanys. You know, not at that level, but put the U.S. in Asia against teams like Japan, South Korea, Australia. Put them in Africa against your Nigerias, your Ghanas, your Egypts. I would see USA, Mexico, and even Costa Rica. Costa Rica, they went to the World Cup quarterfinals in 2014. Honduras has been to the last 3 World Cups, maybe?
Yeah.
So outside of those, I think those 4 teams have developed to a point where they are competitive when they're playing well on their day against anybody outside of the big European teams and the big South American teams.
Sure.
But then, you know, I also think there's quite a steep drop off after that. I have to give Panama a shout out for the strides they've made in recent years over the last, let's say, 10 years. But they're still a little ways away. And then you've got teams like Trinidad and Tobago. I would even put Jamaica in that category, where it all depends on the cycle. If they get a special player or 2 or 3, and maybe they add some players from England or the UK, and they come in, you know, they can really take a jump really quickly. But you know, in terms of where these teams are structurally, I would put them all, you know, at the top of those other confederations.
We could definitely dive deeper into that, but we're not going to today. All right. Well, so this the USA and Mexico have a joint bid for the World Cup with Canada.
Right.
And we were talking, and you know, there's been a few articles out there questioning how happy Mexico really is about this joint bid, because they're going to get 10 matches in Mexico. I'm sure Canada is pretty okay with it. And the USA gets, I believe it would be 60 matches.
Yeah, I think it's 60, 10, and 10. Including
all the quarterfinals, semifinals, and final.
Right.
Which, you know, that's pretty much the whole tournament. Yeah. Whatever. But so is Mexico happy about joining? Because they've hosted the World Cup twice.
Right.
And I believe they won both times they hosted.
They didn't win the World Cup, no.
Did they not win when they hosted?
No. They Brazil 1970, which was Brazil 1970, one of perhaps the greatest national team ever, and then Argentina with Maradona won it in '86.
But okay, all right, way off then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how do you think Mexico feels about this, and does it translate into the actual games being played?
I would. If I put myself into the soul of a Mexican football fanatico, I would feel a little bit slighted based off of their, one, their tradition, 2, their current standing in the game. Their league is stronger, their national team is stronger. And Mexico also has a very sophisticated infrastructure. There are stadia there that are, they wouldn't look out of place in the United States one bit. And I'm thinking of OmniLife in Guadalajara, beautiful, beautiful venue. Azteca, historic, it's being renovated. I haven't really seen what it's about.
Ongoing renovation.
Yeah, yeah.
Fenway Park took 20 years to renovate.
Right,
so
right,
like,
right.
You know.
There's one in Monterey, holds 50,000 people. There are great venues in Mexico. There are probably not enough to host the World Cup. You have to remember, in 2026, this will be the first expanded World Cup.
Right, it's a lot of
48 teams.
A lot of teams.
So maybe Mexico didn't have enough to host it on, by themselves. But in recent years, Canada had been talking about hosting the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah.
Mexico had been talking about, about bidding to host the World Cup in 2026. So this was all before, after the U.S. failed bid for the 2022 World Cup.
Yeah.
Mexico and Canada were thinking they were
failed bid. I won't say any more than that.
Right. So I would think they would be a little bit slighted by just having so few matches and not, no quarterfinals, no semifinals. Maybe they don't get the final. But then it also comes down to dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Which federation is really footing how much of the bill for this bid?
That's a good point. Well, I'm so mixed on it because I'm very excited to be having a World Cup in the United States,
Yeah.
and I think I might take that entire month off of work, whatever job I have in 2026. Hopefully I have a job. But I think I would have been perfectly fine with Mexico getting more games than they have, maybe even more than Canada gets. And even I know it's kind of really hypothetical, but if it was just a USA and Mexico bid and it ended up 50-50 or 60-40 to the US, that would be fine. But now I think, what if Mexico had more games than the US? I wouldn't be happy about that at all. So I have to imagine that Mexico fans aren't very happy about it. Because a joint bid, in theory, should be equal partnership.
Right.
In my mind. But
when it was in Japan and South Korea, that
right.
was very much, it might not have been a 50-50 proposition, but it was never, it's more this country than that.
No, and I don't think, being on the other side of the world, we didn't feel that way at all.
Right.
And I know a lot of people are talking about Uruguay and Argentina doing a joint bid
right.
for 2030.
Correct.
Which would be the 100-year anniversary of the World Cup, which was first hosted by Uruguay. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that would be a very 50-50 thing. I'm sure, I don't know how much a player is really thinking about it, but it's just something worth talking about, worth mentioning.
Right, and from a U.S. perspective, let's be real about this. The U.S. could host this World Cup.
Oh yeah, on their
alone.
Yeah,
they could host 2 World Cups at the same time with 2 expanded World Cups.
There's a lot of stadiums.
A lot of stadiums, a lot of hotels, a lot of airports, a lot of trains, a lot of buses, a lot of everything. And it won't bankrupt the country, which...
No. Yeah. I guess that's the best thing about this joint bid is I would imagine there's going to be the least amount of controversy as far as the surrounding stories of the tournament. Mm-hmm. I mean, with Rio, there was a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
Russia's even got some. Mm-hmm. Qatar is it's like a whole nother world.
Capital C controversy.
It's unbelievable. So this is kind of like a chance to really be able to celebrate a great tournament and the sport of soccer mm-hmm. without in the back of your mind thinking, well, oh geez, there's some other stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So
a clean bid.
Yeah, a clean bid. Thank you. All right, well, looking ahead, busy summer for the U.S. and for Mexico.
Right.
I know we're both excited about the Confederations Cup. Pretty small tournament, but it's a packed tournament. It always is. Mexico plays, let me pull up their schedule. They've got Portugal in their first match.
Wow.
That's a tough one. Then New Zealand, then Russia, the host country. The host country. So tough draw for them in that tournament. But I know they're sending their full roster. They're trying to win it.
Sure.
And they could. I mean, maybe they won't be Portugal, but I think even though Russia's the host nation, I think they're still favored. I'd take Mexico over Russia in that match. So very busy for them, and then they've also got a Gold Cup that they're playing. I don't think it'll be their A squad, but a lot going on there. And then the U.S. also in the Gold Cup. I think we'll see a little bit better of a roster that Mexico puts out as far as close to our top. But, I mean, how much of an A roster will be at the Gold Cup for the U.S., would you say?
For the U.S., I would expect it to be like a B+. A lot of the players who are playing in Europe are just coming off their seasons now. They're playing these very important World Cup qualifiers right now as we speak. And I think Bruce Arena wants to give them a break, like a real break, because next season is going to run 9-10 months, and that's followed by the World Cup, which hopefully they'll still be in. So I would see mostly like an MLS heavy, maybe some of the players that play in the Mexican leagues will...
guys that are also trying to prove themselves and maybe get more of a look for, you know, the World Cup qualifiers in the fall and then on into Russia.
Right, because once after the Gold Cup, there are going to be very few chances for a player who maybe isn't, he won't be entirely outside of Bruce Arena's radar, but somebody who's just on the periphery to really break into this team and, you know, establish himself as a squad player or even somebody who's going to play significant minutes at the World Cup. Every player dreams of representing their country at the World Cup, and this Gold Cup is going to be the last chance, the last real chance.
This is why I love the Gold Cup. And a lot of people don't like the Gold Cup for this same reason, but I love that you get to look at, you know, on the fringe sort of players, you know, players when you're putting together the World Cup roster, they're like maybe getting cut, but you get to see them in a real competitive, like over tournament. And like you were saying, like you want to give the good players a real rest because it's not just 3 games. I mean, there's a friendly beforehand.
Yep.
Probably going to advance to the knockout rounds. So you're talking 5, maybe 6 or 7 games, and you know the camp leading up to it is significant.
Yeah, it'll be
and
competitive.
very competitive practices and training sessions. So it's a lot to commit to it. It's like committing to a full-fledged tournament.
Right.
So it's a great thing to watch and to follow and pay attention to.
Yeah, and I expect you know, Mexico will take it seriously.
Yeah.
And you know, the United States will take it seriously. Bruce Arena talked about a perfect year being winning the Gold Cup and qualifying for the World Cup. So it should be a good tournament. You know, as for Mexico and the Confederations Cup, yeah, you said it. They're good enough to win this.
Yeah.
Germany's not sending their A squad. A lot of their players are going to get a rest. Portugal will have a good squad there. Ronaldo's in there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Mexico beat Portugal. Portugal won the European Championship, but they were not a classic European champion.
No, they were. I mean, it was like kind of, you know, I mean, it's still Portugal. And Ronaldo got hurt in the final, but it was kind of like a Cinderella story sort of feeling.
Yeah. The Euro bored me at the time, and I'm still bored by the Euro a year later. It was one of the dullest tournaments that you know, in recent memory. But congrats to Portugal for winning it. But you know, I wouldn't say, okay, Portugal won the Euro and now they're going to be favorites in the World Cup in Russia.
No
way.
No. All right. Well, pretty short on time, but just real quick, back to the USA-Mexico match Sunday night, 8:30 Eastern. What do you think is going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what. You don't like predictions. I'll give you my prediction.
Okay.
I think we get the 1-1 draw. I think it's Clint Dempsey with a pretty dramatic goal. But I think we kind of end up being lucky. Like, there'll be something Mexico maybe called offside or like a controversial thing happens in our defensive end, and it looks like Mexico probably should have come away with a goal. Maybe they get a goal like taken away from them, something along those lines. And then on the other end, we sort of like really don't have many chances at all, but end up with a more or less lucky goal at the end, and Clint Dempsey kind of pulls a rabbit out of his hat. I like to get really specific on my predictions.
Yeah. And I like that. Yeah.
But I think the crowd will be that, like, it'll be, I mean, this is as good as it gets for World Cup qualifying.
Right.
I mean, USA-Mexico in this sort of setting in the final round, I mean, it's as good as any other nations playing each other.
Yeah,
so.
I would. I'm expecting the United States to lose in controversial circumstances.
Okay.
I think Team USA will be CONCACAF'd. That's a verb, meaning
I've never heard that.
Meaning robbed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so confident that they're going to go down there and get 3 points at AZTECA. It just doesn't happen.
I'm only saying it because I don't think they're going to get 3 points either. I think they're going to get 1 point, but just I was so encouraged by their performance versus Trinidad and Tobago, and I think with Pulisic, he's one of the most exciting players we've had in a long time and can really make a lot of things happen. And like I said earlier, how he draws attention, or he will begin to draw even more attention. I think he's already started to do that a little bit. But I just think we're such a strong squad, but the only thing is that Mexico is really strong right now, too.
Yes, they are.
So, and that's why this game is so great, and that's why we're so excited for it.
Right, right.
But we'll see what happens. Final word?
Final word, Mexico has a player named CHUCKY Lozano, who I was watching last night. I'd seen a little bit of him in recent weeks and months, and I was just reading that Manchester City is going to sign him and loan him to a Dutch club for a season or two. He might be the best player in CONCACAF right now. He just might be. He's fantastic.
I was seeing Arsenal bidding for Pulisic, fake news rumors. But yeah, that kind of stuff always comes up. I feel like especially with a young U.S. player.
But he is that good that if he was at Arsenal, the next, Arsenal or any other big Premier League club, or Bayern Munich, wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, Dortmund is they're a big club.
They don't come much bigger than Dortmund.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for joining us. We'll check in with you next week for a Confederations Cup tournament preview. We'll also probably discuss this match, a little bit of a post-match discussion, just a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, catch us on YouTube /NESN, NESN.com/podcast, and on SoundCloud and on iTunes. We're everywhere. You can't miss us. So thanks for joining us, and see you next week.